What up people, Derek here, back at it with another episode of benDy Tubes. This one, episode 2 of Quamen, brought to you by beer that matches my shirt. So like I said, in episode 2, we're gonna be covering the Quamen Clad. And I'm gonna be honest, this is version 3 of this script. It's really hard to talk about a year over a year frame change and just not sound monotonous and boring, just talking about deeds and dims from generation to generation. So we're gonna chunk this thing up and see how it flows. So the Quamen Clad dropped in 1996 and went through 5 generations up to 2005. The G1, G2, G3, G4, and G5. There were small changes generation to generation, so I'm gonna try and capture a few of those. From a top tube standpoint, this thing started out at 18.5, went to a 19 with a G2, and then settled in about 18.8, 18.75, depending on your decimal precision after that. Same with the head tube angle. Not sure where it started with the G1, but the G2 had a 75, G3 got a 76.5, and that persisted all the way to the G5. 76.5 is super snappy, so that's pretty cool to see that they went up in the twitchiness of their head tubes. So it's kind of hard sometimes to distinguish between these older generations of clad. So the easiest way that I found is go to www.reddit.com, find this post, and then learn about the Swiss cheese signals that the dropouts can convey on their generation. I should call out that the G1 had basic dropouts, but bends in the seat stays. So that's an easy way to distinguish G1. But after that, the droppies in the Swiss cheese diagrams had the information for what generation you're looking at. Other callouts from a design and construction standpoint, they all had a formed sheet of plate steel for a gusset up front, which changes midway through, which we'll talk about for sure. And that bottom bracket technically floated underneath the down tube, so that opened up a little bit of space on the front end. Like I said, not bent, but this helped create some space. So like I said, I didn't want to read through generation after generation of the G1 through the G5, so that's it for the G1 through the G5. Progress for sure, evolutionary, not revolutionary, other than the simple creation of the Clad G1, which was amazing, no doubt. So 2006 appears to be the start of the real goodness for Quamen. And each generation from here took a big step forward or a step in solidifying who they were. We had the G6 and the Delta dropped in 2006. Like I said, I'm only covering Clad in this video, so the Delta is going to be in episode 3 of Quamen. The G6 took a few design cues from the Delta. I'm not sure which came first, but the Clad had an 18.8 top tube. Head tube angle laid itself back to a 73.5 degree head tube angle. That's from a 76. That is a bug and a shocking 3-degree difference in head tube angle. That is huge from a year-over-year change. One of the really exciting and progressive details of the G6 and the Delta was that the down tube intersected the head tube above the top tube. And in reality, the top tube never even intersected the head tube. This is a first. I'm not sure which did it first or which did it better, but you can see this persist through the years and iterations of the Clad and other models that they made. I want to spend a little bit of time here because this bent tube or this straight tube crisscross was an absolute icon of a design feature. And it has the same effect as a bend. It opens up the front end a little bit, no bends, straight tube, space no less. Now just look at the KHE RIP, the St. Martin Wells and the Wells 2, Arctic the Way, Autumn Blitz V3, A Bad Thing, Viking Chris. This design persisted through all of those. So really, really iconic way to open up space without having to bend tubes. And I'm gonna give this an honorary bent designation. So back to the G6, they dropped the pierced top tubes. The tubes got skinnier. They didn't need to pierce anything with those. And it looks like the G6 was actually the start of the European bottom bracket. So Euro, mid, Spanish, whatever, just not American bottom bracket. One last call out on the G6, that plate steel gusset up front that I mentioned before has now become a tube. So that is gone, the tube is in, and that's what persists for the remainder of the life of these bikes. See also lard set. Now, it's hard to tell when the G7 came about. It may have been 06, it may have been 07. It's kind of confusing on BMX Museum. So for the sake of numeric consistency, we're gonna say the G7 dropped in 07. Another Clad, 18.8 top tube, which seems to be the settled dimension, 75-degree head tube angle, and getting back to that steepness that they were known for, and 12.75 chainstay. Classic at this point, not much else to say about the Clad, really. So it took 6 generations to get here, and you can tell that these are refined and tried and true and tested dimensions. So they solidified their plan and their strategy from a sizing standpoint, and this is what you got from here on out. In 08, the G8 dropped, and that was one amongst many frames. It had the same dimensions as the G7, like I said. Those have been solidified and locked in, and the big change was really at the front end. I'm not sure what specifically changed, if it was the angle of the down tube or where it intersected. They dropped a little bit and increased the head tube stack height, but they opened up a tiny little gap in the front end that you can see here. Cool detail, really stands out. And this is another element that persisted as this frame progressed year over year. Also, internal headset, dropped the lard set. Instead of stacking that thing up, they figured out how to machine and form the internal headset cups. So more progress, G8, definitely moving in the right direction. And so this brings us to 2010. Quamen fulfilled the prophecy and created the Quamen Clad G9. This would be the last Quamen Clad. And so I can have the audience read out the dimensions with me from memory at this point. 18.75 top tube, 75-degree head tube angle, 12.75 rear end. But I mean, look at it. Look at this thing. It is so slick, so smooth, so beautiful. Just squished, like the down tube intersecting the head tube above the top tube, the opening up in the front end between those gussets, the skinny, the squish, the internal headset, the Euro bottom bracket. Like, this thing is amazing. Absolutely love this frame. Really, really stunning. And like, this is a culmination of 10 years of progress of this model of Quamen. So absolutely love it. And I just want to call out this bike on BMX Museum. Candy Cube has the best collection of anybody on BMX Museum. So Candy Cube, well done. Well done. Appreciate looking at this thing. The Swalo, the Swalo brakes, the Mike S pegs, like just a really, really thing of beauty. And that's it for the Quamen Clad. 9 generations, G1 to G9, just really, really iconic frame. Be sure to join me, episode 3, where we talk about the others of Quamen. Again, Derek, benDy Tubes,